Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for taking your time today to join us for this session. And I would like to welcome you on behalf of SAP to the Navigate the New Normal webinars series. And as mentioned, today's topic is about the employee safety, and I think rightly so. Now, as we see the new normal, the scenarios are changing every week as we speak, right? So and today, if we anybody can stand up and say that I have answers to every single problem or challenge that is coming through, I don't think that would be right. We all, and that's why at SAP, what we had done is we have brought together our partners and the entire community together under this umbrella called Navigating the New Normal, where we are helping our customers to really navigate through with confidence. And um, as we see, as you are seeing some of the challenges that are emerging, and these are some unprecedented issues that we had never seen. The disruption in supply chain, most of you would agree, is enormous. We are looking at de-risking vendor strategies, local vendors, etc. We are looking at planning, as I said, on scenarios on week rather than looking at demand forecasting for a long run, because we don't know how the future demands would be like. Automation of manufacturing plants, so on and so forth. The list of the kind of problems that our customers are coming to us is huge. However, one of the priority was to look at how do we ensure employee safety, and it is something which is in everybody's mind today. And ensuring the quality of the product delivers in these working environment. So we thought that let's do some work around it. And one of our prominent ecosystem partners, Tagbox, has been at it, trying to identify solutions around it. Tagbox is also an SAP co-innovation partner as part of our startup incubation program. And their approach was to really find out, what can be done in this area, what are the available technologies, and what could be the fastest and the most cost-effective way for businesses today to ensure this in the complex environment in which Indian business operates, right? So this is something which has to be very specific. So in fact, without taking much time, I would like to welcome Adarsh to take you through his findings and recommendations. But before he does that, I would also urge that as the participants, I would also invite you to participate in Navigate the New Normal initiative that SAP has launched. Very soon, you will get an invite to join an online platform. And I would request you to do that. And when you do that, please be active participation so that you can join the community effort in helping other businesses as well to emerge out of these challenges faster and much better. So, Adarsh, over to you. Please take it forward.
Sure. Thanks so much, Pratik. Good evening, everybody. I'm Adarsh. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tagbox. Before we jump into today's topic, which is about employee safety, supply chain safety, and quality assurance, I just want to take a minute just to introduce Tagbox to all of you. I'm sure some of you would have heard about and interacted with us in the past via SAP or otherwise. I just wanted to give a primer to the others. We are a supply chain focused company. We help companies build smarter, resilient, and more reliable supply chains. And the resiliency is actually one aspect of the entire solution that we're going to talk about. We look at integrated three technologies for our customers for various applications: IoT, machine learning, and AI. And as a result of all of this, um, we have actually got a lot of industry recognition over the last 3 to 4 years, with NASSCOM CII being an SAP partner and working with Qualcomm. If you go to the next slide, what you will see is basically a set of applications that we work with our customers on. Number one is product quality and compliance, working on things like temperature compliance, cold chain asset health, reducing product damage. traceability of assets, traceability of SKUs and batches across end-to-end supply chain. This is actually going to become a big deal, especially post-COVID, and I'll talk about why in a bit. And operational efficiency, where we work with our customers on yard management, logistics efficiency, and staff tracing and productivity use cases. In fact, staff tracing and productivity has been in our portfolio for some time, and this has become the basis and the foundation of what I'm going to talk to you about today. So moving to the next slide, let me just talk about what we believe the new normal looks like post-COVID. In fact, it starts post-lockdown itself. I think if you look at a pre versus post-COVID analysis, what we will realize is that currently most businesses work on physical and site safety protocols. I think that's going to evolve into disease spread protocols, because I think everybody needs to start managing how disease spread happens in a workplace. I think a big area of concern right now for businesses is that if somebody tests positive, do we shut down the entire facility? Do we go into downtime mode until quarantining and sanitization happens? I think that's something that's a big challenge and needs to be solved for, which is why we need to talk about not just individual or personnel safety risk. I think we need to start talking about partner and customer safety risk. What that means is that it's not just about a single employee or a single personnel. It could be your own employee or contract, doesn't matter. It actually is now all about all the people in the supply chain who are interacting with each other. These could be 3PL partners, these are end customers, these are retailers, distributors, because unfortunately, what we're dealing with here is not just a direct person-to-person spread, but it could be a person to surface to person kind of a spread. So that's something that we need to deal with, which is why the safety policies and SOPs need to evolve, not just from a compliance perspective. It should evolve into tracking individuals and interactions and real-time compliance and provenance, right? So I think gone are the days where we can just have a perspective on audit compliance, which just happens, let's say, once in a quarter, once in 6 months. I think we need to move into real-time individuals interactions and provenance monitoring, which will give us a perspective of what's really happening in the supply chain, how is it getting affected. Because I think what really is going to happen, and see, we are already in an information age. All of us need more information about everything that we buy. Imagine a scenario 6 months later, customers are already apprehensive about what they're consuming. It's that apprehension is actually going to become bigger given COVID. So I think the demand of more information about the quality of products is just going to become bigger and bigger. And we strongly believe that organizations who can provide this information to customers in a timely manner are the ones who are going to win. So I think this is the preface and the context to what we're talking about. So if you just move to the next slide, what we will see is that to be able to work in this new normal, or to be able to navigate this new normal, there are various interactions that we will have to monitor. Number one is people-to-people interactions. I think most of you, if not all, would have already implemented some sort of a body temperature recording mechanism of personnel coming into your facilities. Obviously, and we are talking to a lot of customers right now, on this topic, and most of them are maintaining a pen and paper record, right? How do you create a digital record? Is a big question. Second, we need to have a very clear view on who all did a particular person come in contact with when they were in the facility at any given time. This is important from a contact tracing perspective. See, the problem that we are dealing with here, with COVID, is that I'm sure you have heard that 70 to 80% of the cases are asymptomatic. So there could be a person who looks perfectly fine, tests from a body temperature perspective, tests perfectly okay, comes into the facility, works the whole day, does that for 2 or 3 days, and then on the 4th day he tests positive. Now, the problem that you face at that point in time is how do you manage, or what I call quote unquote your quarantine set, which could be the set of equipments, assets, and people that this person has come in contact with over the last 2 to 3 days. How do you determine that, right? That's a big problem to solve, because you don't want a situation where a few people have tested positive and suddenly you're talking about sanitizing the whole facility, shutting down everything, right? That won't be really productive. So that's something that really needs to be managed. Second, on similar lines, is what do the people process interactions look like? I'm sure that you guys have already talked about creating permissions around who can be in what part of your facility at any given point in time. Now more than ever, those permissions need to be adhered to. Those compliances need to be adhered to by the people. No more breaches can be tolerated literally, right, in this kind of a scenario. So we need to know which staff was present in which facility zone at any given point in time. Were there any red flags from a compliance or SOP perspective? Which equipments were they using, and for how long? Because that can be a leading indicator to who else gets affected if the original person who was driving or using the equipment was affected. What do the people product interactions look like? So here is where the risk actually exponentially increases, because suddenly now you're talking about let's say if you take an e-commerce scenario or even a regular scenario where these products which are handled by somebody are then being shipped, and then within a day or two they're reaching retailers, they're reaching distributors, they're reaching the end consumers in some scenarios. So right, you are now amplifying the risk of this disease spread not just to your own facility, but now it is being spread to anywhere outside, and then that just continues to spread. So which products were handled by staff? What was the complete chain of custody of each product all the way until end customers? That's something that is very important to now know and be able to tell the customer that the product that they're receiving has been tested from a safety perspective. And then finally, number 4, process product interactions. Now these are classic supply chain metrics, not specific to COVID, but this is something that, for example, TagBox has been helping customers do for the last 4 years. Like I said earlier, this actually is about the information that you give to the end customer, right? In terms of the product safety, product quality, and so on, and traceability, right? So which state of the supply chain is the product in? What is the health of the product? What is the root cause of, let's say, a temperature excursion, of bad health? What is the health of equipment, and so on? For the purpose of today's discussion, I would like to focus on 1, 2, and 3 because that's an immediate need right after lockdown. But the way this solution has been designed, and we will emphasize this throughout this presentation, is that while it immediately addresses this contact tracing kind of an safety concern, this solution is a tried and tested solution even for general product quality and traceability, and I will talk about that going forward. So let's move on. Let me give you an initial perspective on how the solution works. I think everybody will be now thinking about, hey, how will this contact tracing really work, right? I'm sure individually we all know about Arogya Setu and some of those apps which work on Bluetooth technology, and if you are near somebody else who is infected, you will come to know, and so on, right? Now the problem that most of us face, especially in manufacturing industries, is that one of two problems. One is either mobile phones are not really allowed inside a facility, right, for the for the staff, for the personnel, because of other security reasons. Second is we are dealing with a class of people who can't really afford smartphones to have an Arogya Setu app and then being able to contact trace. So what we have thought about and researched and found out is the fact that this solution needs to be completely non-intrusive, should be easily attachable and detachable, should be could be given to a person as they come into a facility and can be taken back when they are going out, and without actually impacting the actual operations. We should be able to get a sense of all the contact tracing, who, proximity, and so on and so forth. So that's the attempt that we have done with this solution. So the way this works is that every person, every employee, when they come in the morning, or whenever their shift starts, they are given an ID tag. This is a Bluetooth low energy based tag, and obviously we can take some of the technology questions much later. But this is a Bluetooth low energy based tag with a shock sensor, and I'll talk about why the shock sensor is relevant at some point in time. This tag is given to the person. There's a QR code on the tag. It gets scanned by the mobile app that we will be providing, which will be on the security guards or security personnel's mobile phone. They will scan the QR code. They will enter this person's name, phone number, Aadhaar number in some cases, and check them in. They take a photograph and check them into the facility. Or if they are an existing employee, you don't need to go through this entire process. Using simply a employee ID or previously stored phone number from a database, this can be auto-populated. The security guard will then take the body temperature using a gun. Now we are actually, just for the group's knowledge, we are working on automating this process of entering the temperature directly into the app. We don't have the solution yet right now, but in another 3 to 4 weeks, we believe that we will have that. And then this will become a completely automated process. Right now, the security person will just enter the temperature into the mobile app. So what you are creating this way is a digital record of entry of this particular person. So obviously it almost behaves like a audience, rather a staff attendance management solution. And I know that I'm talking to a lot of people, and biometrics in general is something that people are staying away from, or even if they have it in their facility, they are disabling it. So this also acts like a digital attendance management system if you don't already have it. So this person is then given this ID tag, they wear that, and then they go into the facility, right? So, and every person at the backend, from a software perspective, you can actually assign them to a particular zone, so that then you can monitor whether the zone compliance is working or not, right? So that's the people monitoring bit. From now, like I said, this is not just about people to people interactions. You need to also look at people to process and people to product interactions. Now in that scenario, the similar sensor, we also put that on different types of machinery that people use: forklifts, assembly lines, right, trolleys, reach trucks, whatever, right, depending on what is relevant inside your environment. These sensors are also proximity based, right? Essentially, the way this entire technology works is that when two of these sensors come close to each other, we have a proximity cutoff, and if that proximity cutoff is breached, a proximity transaction is recorded, depending on how close they are with each other. So this works with people to people, with people to equipment, people to assets. It doesn't matter, right? Additionally, you will definitely have assets like, for example, bins or pallets or crates, which are being used to send products all the way to the end consumer or a retailer. Those could also be additionally tagged with a standard condition monitoring sensor, like a temperature sensor or a shock sensor if it's a fragile goods environment, or a light sensor if light exposure is something that you want to monitor, or a combination of these, to additionally give you condition monitoring inputs, right, to look at product quality across the board. So like I said earlier, I want to emphasize on the point that while this solution immediately resolves your contact tracing and employee safety, this solution can be extended to solve for quality assurance and traceability even after this lockdown issue and COVID issue actually ceases to exist, right? So that's the overall solution from a tagging perspective. How this materializes now in terms of the actual shop floor, if you go to the next slide, we'll see that what we do is these sensors themselves cannot really send data to the cloud, right? These are Bluetooth based sensors, so you need some sort of a reader apparatus. So we have something called our Tag Hub gateways. These gateways are installed in different parts of your facility to do two things. One is the fact that they record everything that is happening with the sensors and transmit that to the cloud using a Wi-Fi or a GSM connection. So like, for example, if two people came close to each other and a proximity flag was triggered, then that flag would be transmitted to the cloud using the gateway. Okay, that's number one. Second aspect is that we are able to create, I'll call it, these mini virtual zones inside your entire facility. So like if there is a person who is walking through the facility through different parts, you will know that complete path based on the handshake that their tag is having with the various gateways all along the way, right? So that's the dual purpose of these gateways. So if you look at this map right now, there is a red person who is kind of moving from zone 1 to zone 2, interacting with various people, sitting in a forklift, transferring the goods to a dock, and then from the dock it goes to a truck on a mobile, and then all the way to the end consumer, kind of a scenario. Now what will happen if this person tests positive? You want to be able to know the complete contact tracing history. So this is the kind of chart that will appear once you are able to look at the last 2 or 3 days of this person, you will know that this person is in the center, and then the entire red trail is the immediate quarantine set or immediate sanitization set for you, right? These are the people that need to be quarantined. These are the people who are at high risk. These are the customers who you need to talk to. These are 3PL partners you need to talk to about those specific drivers or whoever was delivering those products that day. So what this does is the 3 people who are not at risk don't really need to be quarantined, right? They can continue with their normal business. The areas in the facility where this person never went, they don't need to be quarantined, and you can just simply, the operations can be on. So this gives a very non-intrusive, very seamless, right? Very effective way of managing this. None of these sensors need to be charged daily, so it takes out the complete operational hassle, right? We manage the complete, the sensor, the software, everything is given to you. All you need to do is put some management bandwidth to supervise. Like for example, we'll be giving you alarms. You need to make sure that social distancing alarms are then adhered to, right? So actions and recommendations is what you need to then follow. Moving on, just to kind of summarize the key metrics that get captured through the system. So let me again talk about the immediate impact, right? So contact tracing is the immediate impact, right? That's the immediate solution that you will deploy. You will be able to get real-time presence of people, count of people and time spent in different zones. You will be getting social distancing alarms based on the proximity thresholds that we set. Complete contact trail of personnel, equipment, and assets, like I was mentioning earlier. Zone compliance and zone compliance alarms, movement path of every person, and a digital temperature record, right? So that's the immediate impact. And then obviously this can also be built in synergy with SAP's business technology platform, that is SAP CP, can be tied up well with SAP solution offerings for workflow spanning, core S4, success factors, etc. So we can create an integrated solution for you, given that we are an SAP co-innovation partner, and build this for you. So that's the immediate benefit. Obviously, as the solution matures, the following are the other benefits that you will receive. Number one is traceability, right? The same sensor on equipments and assets will give you a perspective on asset traceability across within the facility and in transit. You are going to get automated cycle counts of which forklift and which reach truck, how many of them are in which zones. You get complete end-to-end track and trace of products from supplier to end customer. Second, operational efficiency. The same sensor can actually give you a very good idea of your dwell time, like dock efficiency, loading time, unloading time. Our original solution, right, where I was talking this about this at the beginning, is about staff productivity. So you will be able to also know which is your productive start versus idle time. Digital recording of staff entry exit time, I was already mentioning this earlier, which is kind of almost your digital attendance system. And then utilization of various assets, like for example, you will know how long has a forklift run, how long has a reach truck run, how much has it been used versus not. So the same technology is being applied for other applications. And finally, product quality, complete product contact trail, condition monitoring and excursion management. If there is a temperature excursion that has happened, you want to know the root cause of it and the impact that it has had on spoilage and damage and so on, you will be able to know. So like I said, while immediately this is being used for contact tracing, you can use it for traceability, operational efficiency, and product quality use cases. So that's the basic kind of concept that we want to take you through. Just before we end and go into questions, just wanted to talk about the last bit, which is about obviously, I think, and we are seeing some questions also come in. Are there alternative technologies which can be used? So we created a quick perspective of the most relevant alternative technologies. The center is our the center portion here is the BLE tags, which is our solution. But then you can also do this with RFID tags, and you can do this with cameras. Now, I just want to quickly talk about the pros and cons, right, before we jump into questions. So obviously, with our tags, you have our BLE ID tags or wearables, right? And we have what we call radial readers, which means that it's not really a specific channel that you need to pass through to be read. Like for example, if you look at an RFID tag, and I'm sure I can give you a perspective from a let's say a fashion assembly line, wherein you have a very specific channel through which various garments are passing through with RFID tags, and only if it passes through that channel it can be read. Now, if you expand that to a large warehouse or large factory, it is very tough for you to create that kind of reading apparatus, and which is why radial reading is much better. Camera is a pretty good option from a CCTV or high resolution. I'm sure most of you already have CCTV and security cameras, which can be kind of repurposed for this thing, but it obviously is a difficult proposition from a algorithms perspective. If you look at solution costs, the RFID is a pretty cheap tag, but the readers are very costly. To be able to cover large facilities, it's going to be a pretty big problem. From a camera perspective, both the hardware and the compute is actually very expensive, right? Especially if you look at high resolution cameras, because this actually will involve facial recognition. If you want to really get into proximity kind of analysis, you will need to have facial recognition. And now just imagine the kind of compute that is required either on the edge or on the cloud to be able to look at thousands of people real time and being able to look at facial recognition, not just from an individual recognition perspective, but also the interactions. That's going to be tough, right? Now, from a reading zones perspective, the advantage of our technology is that it gives you complete coverage of your facility, and it's always real time, versus RFID, which works best in like I said earlier, in almost a tunnel environment or with the gate entry exit kind of a scenario. A camera can also be high real time, but again, there could be blind spots just because how facilities are designated, and we are relying at video. Personal contact tracing, which is the key thing that we talked about today, is absolutely possible with this BLE solution. Not possible with RFID. It doesn't really communicate with each other. We are looking at passive tags. It can be done with camera, but the problem now, especially with COVID, is that facial recognition is very difficult because people are going to be wearing masks. So don't really know how the solution will really work. Similarly, with equipment contact tracing, not really possible with RFID. Possible with cameras, but very complex algorithms are required to be able to do this. And if you look at it right now, right, lockdown is going to end in about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half from now. You want the solution to be up and running immediately, right? And the camera solution doesn't lend itself to be able to do that. Body temperature monitoring, we can also give you armbands, wristbands, which can be used for real-time temperature monitoring, so that can work on the very similar principles. Cameras, well, you can put thermal cameras, but again, they're very expensive and you cannot have so many of them all the time. So and then finally, like I said, other than the immediate contact tracing use case, additional traceability, operation adherence, and quality use case is something that we can enable very easily, which the RFID and camera solutions cannot, right? So that was a quick run through of the entire solution, everyone.